What's going on, guys? I thought I would talk about something that got me into gaming. And it's going to be a little bit personal. So I will say this, you might get bored. And if you don't want to watch it, I understand. But I felt like talking about this today because I thought, since yesterday I talked about Kingdom Hearts, I'd probably get into some earlier stages of my gaming. I mentioned in my video about Kingdom Hearts that, I wasn't a big gamer in the 2000s. It wasn't until I was a late teenager. I got a PS3 finally, and Call of Duty was like my introduction into gaming. Now, I still played games before that, but I wasn't as like into gaming as I became when I was a late teenager. But I'd like to show you a few things I've collected through the years that actually kind of started me on the path of gaming. To give you a bit of a background, I have asthma and I have ADHD. So as a child in the 90s, if you have ADHD and asthma, if you ever heard of the breathing machine, which was something I had, it was a steroid that was inside like a Nintendo. I say Nintendo, it looks like a Nintendo. And basically you put a vial in it that was brown, disgusting, tasted like shit, and you would actually have to breathe all this vape in. It was the earliest of vaping that I've seen, but basically it was a vapor that you sucked in. And it's a steroid that helped your lungs. Now I had ADHD, so sitting down for an extended period of time like that without being, entertained for whatever reason, whether, mentally, physically, whatever, was a complete chore. So they bought me my first game to get me preoccupied. This is Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers. It was made by Tiger Electronics. It's a fantastic game for the 90s. It's absolute trash now. It's a horrible thing. Don't play it. But it's a nice thing to hold on to as a, memorabilia for when I was a kid. It's one of the earliest games I had. Now, my first game I ever actually owned, once you get to like what you would call modern gaming, was an Atari. Now, the Atari didn't function that great, so I didn't get to play it a lot. But that's when somebody in my family decided to help me a little bit more. And this is a little bit fun fact. So I got this a little bit recently, even last year. Now this is dirty as hell. The other one's dirty as hell. I got to clean them. But I didn't know this. There is a game in it. I got it from somebody, and it's got Super Mario 3 in it, which is awesome. Now, my original console that I had two of them, and all my games, had like 30 NES games, were all stolen, so I don't have them. So that's a little bit of a sad face because, yeah, I don't have them anymore. But that was my earliest, gaming, which was a Nintendo. And I had a friendly little bit of back and forth with my grandmother who would try to play Super Mario with me, and she was terrible at it. Love her to death. R.I.P. She did pass away, but it was fantastic. She was a very loving woman. Then we move on to PlayStation. I first got introduced to PlayStation with two games. One was Tony Hawk, which I don't even own. It wasn't as fun of a game, which I know that's blasphemy. A lot of people like it, but I don't know why. Tony Hawk just didn't feel... I just didn't get that feel. Once the Underground games came out, it was a little bit better to me. But the original felt a little bit not complete, like where it should have been. But I started off on one game, which I've mentioned before, probably 1,000 times, which was what got me into Castlevania, was what my mother was playing, which they bought this. Yeah, it's got black tape on it. This is the greatest hits that was given to me when I was a teenager. But this is the very same game that I played the hell out of. It's completely busted. It's barely held together. But it's a fantastic game if you haven't played it. I've streamed it, actually, and I enjoy it. I have that and the original Black Disc, which was given to me for a Christmas present. And I keep that on a shelf because it is, at one time, was an expensive game. It's not as expensive now. Both of them are still pretty pricey. But those were the games that got me into the Metroidvania style of games, because I didn't have Metroid yet. And I didn't actually get Super Metroid, which is the first Metroid game I played, until I was in my teens. But I would like to also talk about another game that I've talked about that I do love, and it was one of the few games that I actually fell in love with way before, I got more in depth into gaming, which was Final Fantasy. Now, this is just my PlayStation, which some of these I actually bought recently. This was given to me by a buddy of mine because I played it on Nintendo, and I couldn't play it because my power cord was fucked up, so I had to figure out a way. And I was talking to somebody at school. This was like in 2005, and the dude's like, I know what you're talking about. That's not Final Fantasy 3, because that's what I said. It was Final Fantasy 3, which on the Super Nintendo was labeled that way. He said, I can get you Final Fantasy, 5 and 6 right now. I was like, there's no way you're gonna get that. And he gave me this for $10. It's all shattered to hell and back. Like the back's been cracked because it's been like packaged wrong when I was moving. But this is something that I've kept, and my father gave to me because he could not beat Reno when he puts that the pyramid on you. So I got to keep this, which was my Final Fantasy VII. It's not a misprint, so it's not worth shit, but it's also got a crack in the back. But this stays on my shelf because this is a pride, my pride and joy on my earliest collections, which was fantastic. These two actually are the most recent buys. Still has stickers on them. I bought them recently to add to it, so I have all the PlayStation 1 games that I do like that was PlayStation. Now, I would like to get into the PS2 era of my gaming. Now, this is right before it took off, and I just started buying a massive amount of games I liked. But the problem I ran into was with PS2, I collected maybe 20 games, and they were good games. And this is right when I got into Kingdom Hearts. And Kingdom Hearts was a good game when I found out how great it was. And I bought them. I bought all the ones on PS2. I had Dirge of Cerberus. I had bought Scarface, Grand Theft Auto. And I can't remember the other games, but I had all these games. And what happened, which I've actually mentioned in a previous video, I broke my first controller. It was a PS3 controller. I threw it in anger, and it landed into a bowl of cereal. And I traded in all those PS2 games. And geez, I only kept a few, which was my Kingdom Hearts. And actually, I've been buying back some. Now, like I said, I sold or traded in a bunch of them to get a controller. But here's some of the surviving games that I was giving. Now, some I will explain which ones these I rebought recently. But we got Midnight Club 3, which was a crazy good game back when it came out. Evil Dead Regeneration. If you haven't played it, it is a absolute, goofy game. Technically, this is my uncle's. Don't tell him I have it because he'll probably want it back. Did You Wrath of Heaven? Fantastic game. I got it for $10. I don't know what it's worth now, but I think right after that, it was like $20. Soul Reaver 2, which was a game I never actually got to sit down and play, which I thought was awesome. This was my introduction to, the Shippuden series, and that's when I found out about the Storm games. If you haven't played them, they're actually the best Naruto games there is. Except for the new one, it's trash. If you don't know what this is, it is a very goofy version. So basically, it was almost like a chess board game, and you picked certain decks. The pumpkin, I forget the pumpkin. Anyway, it was a pumpkin character was super OP because it actually built up zombies and would add attack and defense, which was super cool. And everybody knows your absolute favorite, Fight for New York. I don't think it gets enough love, and obviously they can't make a new one because the licenses on rap would be absolutely bankrupting. But that's what got me, on my PS2. That's the surviving ones. These two were the two that I bought from my local retro store for literally $10 a piece. I ended up buying these and a bunch of Spider-Man games that I found out were going to go up in price, so I went ahead and bought them before they went up in price. And that's just with the PS2. That's the surviving ones. I still have my Kingdom Hearts. I think they're on the shelf. I wanted to make sure I don't pull them out. These are actually just stored on a bottom part of a shelf, so they're not out in the open collectible to me. But get around to my PS3. I cannot pull them out. Sorry. I would have to have a giant shelf put in here. I have hundreds of PS3 games for no reason other than I could just buy them. Now, we'll get into the PS3 era of my gaming because that was when I was getting ready to graduate, and I got I think it was either Grand Theft Auto or Saints Row was my choice. I was talking to people at school, and they're like, "Hey man, get Saints Row. If you play Grand Theft Auto, it's the same game with better graphics, but Saints Row is a completely different game." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." So I ended up buying that. That was my first PS3 game. That and Call of Duty, which ironically is in what I'm about to show you. So I still have a PS3. It's sitting in my living room right now, hooked up to my TV, because I do play it from time to time. But this is a game that took me 15 years to find. I still actually have a receipt for it. But Folklore. This was a very early PS3 game, and it actually was so cool. It's even got an ad for a PSP, which is $169.99 on here. But it's actually got my, I still do it. I don't know why, but sometimes when I pull a game out, I just swap them out. I still got Modern Warfare 2 in it. And that game took me forever to find. And while it was worth it, not really price-wise, because the game is not that great. There's a lot of, padding. It's a huge padding game, and I hate that because I looked for it for years because I thought it was an interesting concept, and the artwork is just beautiful. The environment's really cool, and the game play itself is super unique. But before I had a PS4, I actually went and, I bought a bunch of PS3 games. This was still before PS4 came out. What got me into PS4 was actually some buddies who was talking about it, and it was Destiny. Now, I never played Destiny. I seen it, and I mean, on the PS4 back then, oh my God, it was like the best looking game I ever seen. So I come over to buddy's house. He's like, yeah, man, this is Destiny. You got to go get a PS4. I was like, I don't know, man. That's a couple $100. I don't know if I want. Now, I came across some money, a couple $100. I was like, okay, well, let me go up there, and I got a PS4. I still have it. It's barely functional. My PS3 and PS4 original are barely functional. Now, I've shown it in one of my videos. I was going to hook up my Pro in here before I got another PS5, and the Pro is what I ended up getting later. But when I first got one, I got Shadow of Mordor and Destiny. That was my first PS4 games. And that's the first time I found out if you hooked up a mic or a headset to your, controller, like Netflix movies sounded so much better. So that's what kind of drove me into, gaming again, which was I had a pretty decent collection of PS3 games. Once I got into PS4, that's when like all my extra money was going into, games. It would be every paycheck. I'd go up there and be like, hey, what do you got on sale? And they're like, oh, this is $5. Cool, I'm buying it. And I bought $5 bin games all the time. Then once I got the job I work out now, I started to communicate with other people that had side hustle. Now that blew up tremendously. I was able to get a jailbroken Wii, and it's like got every Nintendo, Sega, and Super Nintendo game that ever was made. And I'm not gonna lie, I've played the hell out of it here and there. I'd like to hook it up, but my converter system that converts the video and audio over to HDMI is trash, and it causes peak problems. So it'll peak and just crack and just sound horrible. But that's where we get in today, where like all these games that I've collected, I am actually redoing the room. That's why this is still here, because I still got to be able to get up a little bit higher and try to put my shelves up. I'm redoing the room and trying to get rid of tables to put these games in here, because this is a big history to me. This is like what kind of progressed me into gaming, because now, Call of Duty's slightly different, but a lot of games have come a long way. Spider-Man is no longer what it was on 64, which I still have somewhere in this house. It's changed so tremendously. Batman went from the classic absolute garbage that it was to, what Rocksteady did before they ruined that. And we still need a new Tenchu game. I hate to say it, this is just a fantastic game. And I wish they would like remake it. Just remake it, remaster it, whatever. I want it back. But I've seen they got a lot of licenses issues right now. It's Activision, which are a bunch of assholes. And don't get me into the Legacy of Kain. That is an absolute, complete shit fest I don't want to get into. And actually, I didn't get into Xbox gaming until like recently. I went and bought an Xbox a few years ago, and I got the small one because it was just cheaper, and I bought a bunch of games that I loved that was Xbox only, like all the Fables. Fable is still a fantastic game, even though it doesn't live up to the expectation that he presented 20 years ago. It's still a great game. I just wish he presented it as it was. And actually, Fable, 4 is supposed to be coming out at some point. It was announced it would, but I mean, he's announced it about 100 times. But that's kind of what's got me up to date. These are the games that I like. Gaming as a whole has, kind of been absorbed into my life because it's such a great hobby. It can get expensive here and there, but at the same time, it's also one of the few art forms that are still left at right now that's still got some originality coming out. I just think that there's a bunch of IPs just not being well utilized. Zelda is one of the ones that are taking a little bit longer to come out now because I think they're going to the expansive open world. I'm wondering if they're going to do like a third Breath of the Wild, like do an actual like third installment. I mean, that would be crazy to find out. I'm pretty sure we're actually overdue for an update. If not, probably next year. I think next year is going to be the point we'll get an update. But The Switch 2 is supposed to be getting announced at some point this year. But yeah, this is one of my rambles. I don't know. I just felt like talking about gaming as a whole because gaming has become such a close thing to me. Actually, some of my friends that I've made now and family, one of them I introduced him to online gaming. This is back in 2008 or 9. I picked up Call of Duty. He helped me pay for it. And he picked up Uncharted 2. And he just wanted to get a new console because he played games here and there. Like a lot of my consoles I own now actually came from him. It's my uncle who technically is like a brother. We're around the same age. So he gave me some of the consoles I still own today, which is my Super Nintendo, my 64, and I want to say a PS3 that's sitting in my garage for some reason. I got him into the online gaming portion, which was really cool because now he plays a lot of Call of Duty. He's actually, if you've seen me stream, he's the guy that I play Call of Duty with a lot. And it's kind of ironic that the steps have led up to this. And now that I do YouTube videos, it just kind of like came full circle because he helps me with some of the content that I have done. Now I don't do it a lot. I'm still working on other things. But yeah, that's pretty much the history that got me into gaming as a whole. I didn't touch base too much on Zelda. Zelda was a big, influential piece, but that's a lot of the PlayStation aspect and a little bit of Nintendo. I thought it was something to share. I don't know if you guys will like this video. If you do, I'll try to do probably another one on, I guess, comic books. What got me into comic books. Anime is still a big one, and obviously you can see it right here. But if you like this, you like to kind of see a peek into my my world, I would most definitely love to share some more. We just got to kind of see, I don't know, like it, comment, tell me what you think. Tell me what your favorite games were. Tell me what was like your first game you ever played and what got you into gaming. Even if not, tell me your comic book. Tell me a movie. Tell me what got you into like the nerdverse of anything. I would love to actually see that. And I will try to get to the comments when I can. But yeah, that's about all I got to say. Y'all have a good one.